Welcome to Toxic from Reddit, where real toxic relationship stories come to life. Here you'll hear true stories from people who experience toxic relationships from different perspectives. Partners dealing with cheating, manipulation, gaslighting, red flags, and all the emotional chaos that comes with loving someone who hurts you. Stories of betrayal, of finding strength to leave, of discovering the truth, of heartbreak, of healing, and the raw reality of toxic love. This is a real story, shared anonymously on Reddit. Some details have been changed to protect the identity of the people involved. Hi everyone, my name is Marcus. I'm 31 years old and I live in Los Angeles, California. And I need to tell you about the most devastating betrayal and manipulation that has completely destroyed my trust in love and relationships. Which is that 6 weeks ago, my fiancé of 2 years, who comes from a very wealthy family, pressured me into signing a prenuptial agreement that essentially gives me nothing if we divorce. The prenup was so one-sided that it made me feel worthless. And like I was just a temporary accessory in her life. I signed it anyway because I loved her, and I wanted to prove that I wasn't with her for her money. But then 2 weeks after I signed the prenup, I discovered that my fiancé has been having an affair with her ex-boyfriend for the past 8 months. And now I'm dealing with the devastation of realizing that the woman I was about to marry manipulated me into signing away any financial protection while she was actively cheating on me. And I have to figure out how to move forward from this betrayal. I'm going to tell you this entire story from the beginning because there's so much manipulation and so many painful details that you need to understand how I ended up in this nightmare situation. My fiance's name is Victoria. She's 29 years old, and we met 3 years ago at a charity gala that my company was sponsoring. I work in marketing for a mid-sized tech company, and I make a decent living, but I'm not wealthy by any means. Victoria comes from serious money. Like, her family owns a chain of luxury hotels across the country, and her trust fund alone is worth more than I'll probably make in my entire lifetime. When I met Victoria at that charity gala, I was immediately attracted to her. Like, she was beautiful and sophisticated and charming, and she seemed genuinely interested in talking to me. We talked for hours at that event, and Victoria gave me her number and told me to call her. I was honestly intimidated by Victoria's wealth and her social status, and I almost didn't call her because I thought we were from completely different worlds. But I decided to take a chance, and I called Victoria a few days later, and we went on our first date. Our first date was at an incredibly expensive restaurant that I could barely afford, but I wanted to impress Victoria, so I took her there anyway. Victoria seemed to appreciate the gesture, and we had an amazing time together. We started dating regularly after that, and in the beginning, Victoria's wealth wasn't really an issue in our relationship. Victoria was down to earth and didn't flaunt her money, and she seemed to genuinely like me for who I was, not for what I could provide financially. About 3 months into our relationship, Victoria invited me to meet her family at their estate in Beverly Hills. I was nervous because I knew that Victoria's family was extremely wealthy and influential, and I was worried that they wouldn't think I was good enough for their daughter. When I met Victoria's parents, her father Richard and her mother Catherine, they were polite but cold, and I could tell that they were sizing me up and judging me. Victoria's father asked me a lot of questions about my job, my education, my family background, and my financial situation, and I felt like I was being interrogated. After that dinner, Victoria told me that her parents had concerns about our relationship because of the difference in our financial situations, but that she didn't care what they thought and that she wanted to be with me. I appreciated Victoria's support, but I couldn't shake the feeling that her family would always see me as beneath them. As our relationship progressed, I started noticing that Victoria's family would make subtle comments about money and about my financial situation. Victoria's mother would make comments like, "Oh, Marcus, you probably can't afford to vacation in the Hamptons," or "Victoria is used to a certain lifestyle. I hope you can provide that for her." These comments made me feel inadequate and insecure, but Victoria would always defend me and tell her family to stop making those comments. About a year into our relationship, Victoria and I moved in together into an apartment that Victoria owned in downtown Los Angeles. Victoria insisted on paying for everything: the rent, the utilities, the groceries, and she said that she wanted to take care of me because she had the means to do so. At first, I was uncomfortable with this arrangement because I wanted to contribute equally to our household, but Victoria said that it didn't make sense for me to pay half when she had so much more money than me. I eventually agreed to let Victoria pay for most things, but I insisted on contributing what I could, and I would pay for our dates and for groceries when I could afford it. About a year and a half into our relationship, Victoria proposed to me, and I was shocked because I had been planning to propose to her, but she beat me to it. Victoria took me to a beautiful beach at sunset, and she got down on one knee and asked me to marry her, and she gave me a watch that had belonged to her grandfather. I said yes immediately, and I was so happy and so in love with Victoria. We started planning our wedding, and Victoria wanted a huge, extravagant wedding with 300 guests at her family's estate. I was overwhelmed by the scale of the wedding, but Victoria said that her family was paying for everything, and that I didn't need to worry about the cost. As we got deeper into wedding planning, Victoria's parents became more involved, and they started making more comments about our financial situation and about protecting Victoria's assets. About 4 months ago, Victoria sat me down and told me that her parents were insisting that we sign a prenuptial agreement before we got married. Victoria said that her parents wanted to protect the family's wealth and Victoria's inheritance, and that they wouldn't pay for the wedding or support our marriage unless we signed a prenup. I was hurt by this, because it felt like Victoria's family didn't trust me and thought that I was only with Victoria for her money. But I understood that Victoria came from a wealthy family, and that prenups were common in situations like this. So I said that I was willing to sign a prenup as long as it was fair and reasonable. Victoria said that her family's lawyers would draft the prenup, and that we would both review it with our own lawyers before signing. A few weeks later, Victoria gave me a copy of the prenup to review, and when I read it, I was shocked by how one-sided it was. The prenup stated that in the event of a divorce, I would receive absolutely nothing: no alimony, no share of any assets acquired during the marriage, no share of any appreciation in Victoria's assets, nothing. The prenup also stated that any gifts that Victoria gave me during the marriage would remain her property and would have to be returned in the event of a divorce. The prenup essentially treated me like I was a gold digger who was trying to steal Victoria's money, and it made me feel worthless and humiliated. I told Victoria that I was uncomfortable with the prenup and that I thought it was too one-sided, and I asked if we could negotiate some of the terms to make it more fair. Victoria said that her parents had insisted on these terms, and that they wouldn't budge, and that if I didn't sign the prenup, we couldn't get married. Victoria said that she understood that the prenup was harsh, but that it was just a formality, and that we would never get divorced anyway, so it didn't really matter. Victoria said that if I truly loved her and wasn't with her for her money, then I should have no problem signing the prenup. I felt trapped, because I did love Victoria, and I didn't want to lose her, but I also felt like I was being manipulated into signing something that was completely unfair to me. I talked to a lawyer about the prenup, and the lawyer said that it was one of the most one-sided prenups he had ever seen, and that I would be crazy to sign it. The lawyer said that the prenup offered me no protection whatsoever, and that if Victoria and I got divorced, I would be left with nothing, even if we were married for decades, and even if I contributed to the household and to Victoria's success. The lawyer advised me not to sign the prenup and to try to negotiate better terms, or to reconsider marrying Victoria altogether. But I was in love with Victoria, and I didn't want to lose her. And I felt like if I didn't sign the prenup, Victoria's family would never accept me, and Victoria might break up with me. So against my lawyer's advice, I decided to sign the prenup. I told myself that it didn't matter, that Victoria and I would never get divorced, and that I was signing it to prove that I loved Victoria for who she was, not for her money. About 6 weeks ago, I signed the prenup in front of Victoria's family's lawyers, and Victoria seemed relieved and happy that I had signed it. Victoria's parents were also pleased, and they said that they were glad that we had taken care of this important matter, and that they were looking forward to the wedding. After I signed the prenup, I felt a sense of unease, like I had made a huge mistake, but I tried to push those feelings aside and focus on the positive aspects of our relationship and our upcoming wedding. Our wedding was scheduled for 2 months from now, and we were in the final stages of planning, sending out invitations, finalizing the menu, choosing flowers, and all of the other details. About 4 weeks ago, I started noticing that Victoria was acting differently, like she was more distant, she was on her phone constantly, and she seemed distracted and secretive. When I would ask Victoria what was wrong, she would say that she was just stressed about the wedding planning and about work, and that everything was fine. I tried to be supportive and understanding, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. About 3 weeks ago, Victoria told me that she needed to go on a business trip to San Francisco for a few days, and that she would be staying at one of her family's hotels. I thought this was strange because Victoria had never mentioned a business trip before, and she seemed vague about the details. I asked Victoria what the trip was for, and Victoria said that she was meeting with some investors for a new hotel project that her family was working on. I didn't think too much about it, and I told Victoria to have a safe trip. While Victoria was in San Francisco, she barely communicated with me, like she would send me a few short text messages saying that she was busy with meetings, but she wouldn't call me or FaceTime me like she usually did when we were apart. I started to feel suspicious, and I had a gut feeling that something was wrong. On the second night that Victoria was in San Francisco, I couldn't sleep because I was worried about our relationship, and I decided to look at Victoria's iPad, which she had left at home. I know that looking through someone's device is a violation of privacy, but I had a strong feeling that Victoria was hiding something from me, and I needed to know the truth. When I opened Victoria's iPad, I saw that her messages were synced to the device, and I started reading through her recent conversations. What I found made my blood run cold. Victoria had been having an ongoing conversation with someone named James, and from the messages, it was clear that James was Victoria's ex-boyfriend, and that they had been having an affair for months. The messages were explicit and romantic, like Victoria and James were telling each other that they loved each other, that they missed each other, and that they couldn't wait to be together. I scrolled back through the messages, and I saw that Victoria and James had been talking since about 8 months ago, right around the time that Victoria and I got engaged. The messages showed that Victoria and James had been meeting up regularly, that they had been sleeping together, and that Victoria had been lying to me about where she was and what she was doing. I also saw messages where Victoria was telling James about the prenup, and Victoria was laughing about how she had gotten me to sign it, and how I was so naive and trusting. Victoria told James that once she married me, she would have the perfect cover for their affair, because no one would suspect that she was cheating on her husband. Victoria also told James that she was only marrying me because her parents approved of me and thought I was safe and controllable, and because marrying me would make her look good and would get her parents off her back about settling down. I felt like I was going to throw up, like everything I thought I knew about Victoria and our relationship was a lie. The woman I loved, the woman I was about to marry, had been cheating on me for 8 months, had manipulated me into signing a prenup that gave me nothing, and was planning to continue cheating on me after we got married. I sat there in shock, reading through the messages over and over again, trying to process what I was seeing. I saw messages from just a few hours earlier, where Victoria was telling James that she was at the hotel in San Francisco, and that she wished he was there with her. And then I saw a message from James saying, "I'm on my way. I'll be there in an hour." I realized that Victoria wasn't in San Francisco for a business trip. She was there to meet James, and they were probably together at that very moment. I felt a rage that I had never felt before, and I wanted to confront Victoria immediately, but I also knew that I needed to think strategically about how to handle this situation. I took screenshots of all of the messages between Victoria and James, and I sent them to myself so that I would have evidence of the affair. I also started looking through Victoria's other messages and emails, and I found even more evidence of the affair, including hotel reservations, flight bookings, and romantic gifts that Victoria had bought for James. I spent the entire night going through Victoria's messages and documenting everything, and by the time the sun came up, I had a complete picture of Victoria's betrayal. Victoria had been living a double life, playing the role of my loving fiancée while carrying on a passionate affair with her ex-boyfriend. When Victoria came home from San Francisco 2 days later, she acted like everything was normal. Like she kissed me hello and told me about her business meetings and asked me how I had been. I wanted to confront her immediately, but I decided to wait and to gather more information before I made my move. Over the next week, I continued to monitor Victoria's messages on her iPad, and I saw that she and James were planning to meet up again the following weekend. I also saw messages where Victoria was complaining to James about me, saying that I was boring and that I didn't excite her the way James did. Victoria told James that she felt trapped in our relationship, but that she couldn't break up with me because her parents liked me, and because breaking off the engagement would be embarrassing and complicated. I was heartbroken reading these messages because I had genuinely loved Victoria and had thought that she loved me too, but it was clear that Victoria had never really loved me and had just been using me. About 2 weeks ago, I decided that I had enough evidence, and that it was time to confront Victoria. I waited until Victoria came home from work, and I asked her to sit down because we needed to talk. Victoria could tell from my tone that something was wrong, and she asked me what was going on. I pulled out my phone and I showed Victoria the screenshots of her messages with James, and I asked her to explain. Victoria's face went white, and she just sat there staring at the screenshots, not saying anything. I asked Victoria how long she had been cheating on me, and Victoria started crying and said that she was so sorry and that she had made a terrible mistake. I asked Victoria if she loved James, and Victoria said that she didn't know, that she was confused, and that she loved both of us. I asked Victoria why she had manipulated me into signing the prenup if she was cheating on me, and Victoria said that the prenup had nothing to do with the affair, that her parents had insisted on the prenup and that she had just been following their wishes. I told Victoria that I had read her messages with James, and that I knew she had been laughing about getting me to sign the prenup, and that she had been planning to continue the affair after we got married. Victoria denied this at first, but when I showed her more screenshots, she broke down and admitted that everything I was saying was true. Victoria said that she had never meant to hurt me, that she had gotten caught up in her feelings for James, and that she didn't know how to end things with him. I asked Victoria why she had even agreed to marry me if she was in love with someone else. and Victoria said that she felt pressured by her parents to settle down and get married, and that I seemed like a safe and stable choice. Victoria said that she did care about me, but that she wasn't in love with me the way she was in love with James. Hearing Victoria say this was devastating, because it confirmed what I had already suspected, that I had never been Victoria's first choice, and that I had just been a convenient option. I told Victoria that our relationship was over, and that I was calling off the wedding. Victoria started panicking, and she said that we couldn't call off the wedding, that it would be too embarrassing, and that her parents would be furious. Victoria begged me to reconsider, and she said that she would end things with James, and that she would commit fully to our relationship, and that we could go to couples therapy and work through this. But I told Victoria that there was nothing to work through, that she had betrayed me in the worst possible way, and that I could never trust her again. I also told Victoria that I was disgusted by the way she had manipulated me into signing the prenup while she was actively cheating on me, and that it showed that she had never respected me or valued me as a partner. Victoria said that she understood why I was angry, but that she hoped I would eventually forgive her. I told Victoria that I would never forgive her, and that I wanted her out of my life. I packed my things and I moved out of Victoria's apartment that night, and I went to stay with a friend. Over the next few days, I had to start the process of calling off the wedding, which was humiliating and painful. I had to call our friends and family members and tell them that the wedding was canceled, and I had to deal with their questions and their shock. Some people asked me what had happened, and I told them the truth, that Victoria had been cheating on me. Victoria's parents called me and tried to convince me to reconsider calling off the wedding, and they said that Victoria had made a mistake, but that everyone deserves a second chance. I told Victoria's parents that their daughter had been having an affair for 8 months, and that she had manipulated me into signing a prenup while she was cheating on me, and that there was no coming back from that. Victoria's father said that I was being dramatic, and that affairs happen, and that I should be mature enough to work through this. I was shocked by his response, and I realized that Victoria's family had probably always seen me as disposable, and that they didn't care about my feelings or my well-being. I told Victoria's father that I was done with his daughter and done with his family, and that I never wanted to hear from any of them again. Over the past few weeks, I've been trying to pick up the pieces of my life and move forward from this betrayal. I've been staying with friends, and I've been looking for a new apartment, because I can't afford to live in the expensive area where Victoria and I were living. I've been going to therapy to help me process the betrayal and the manipulation, and my therapist has been helping me understand that what Victoria did was emotional abuse. My therapist has explained that Victoria manipulated me into signing a prenup that gave me no protection, all while she was actively cheating on me and planning to continue cheating on me after we got married. My therapist said that this shows a level of callousness and disregard for my well-being that is truly disturbing. My therapist has also helped me understand that I ignored a lot of red flags in my relationship with Victoria, like the way her family treated me, the way Victoria let her family treat me, and the power imbalance in our relationship because of the wealth difference. My therapist said that I was so focused on proving that I wasn't with Victoria for her money, that I allowed myself to be treated poorly and to accept things that I shouldn't have accepted. I've been thinking a lot about the prenup, and about how I signed away any financial protection because I wanted to prove my love for Victoria. And meanwhile, Victoria was betraying me in the worst possible way. I feel like such an idiot for signing that prenup, and I wish I had listened to my lawyer and refused to sign it. But I also know that even if I hadn't signed the prenup, the relationship still would have ended because of Victoria's affair, so in some ways it doesn't matter. I've been thinking about Victoria and James, and about whether they're still together, and honestly, I don't care. Victoria and James deserve each other, and I hope that James realizes what kind of person Victoria really is. Someone who lies and manipulates and cheats without any remorse. I've been thinking about Victoria's family, and about how they treated me throughout our relationship, and I realize now that they never saw me as good enough for Victoria, and that they probably encouraged Victoria to get the prenup because they saw me as a gold digger. The irony is that I never wanted Victoria's money, I just wanted to be loved and respected. And Victoria's family could never understand that because to them, everything is about money and status. I've been thinking about the lessons I've learned from this experience, and there are so many. I've learned that you should never ignore red flags, especially when it comes to how someone's family treats you, because family dynamics can have a huge impact on a relationship. I've learned that you should never sign a prenup that is completely one-sided, because it shows that your partner and their family don't value you or respect you. I've learned that wealth differences in a relationship can create power imbalances, and that you need to be careful not to let those power imbalances lead to you being treated poorly or taken advantage of. I've learned that if someone is pressuring you to prove your love by doing something that makes you uncomfortable, that's a red flag, and you should stand your ground. And I've learned that you should always trust your gut, because if something feels wrong, it probably is wrong. I've been thinking about my future and about what I want in my next relationship. I know that I want to be with someone who values me and respects me, regardless of how much money I make or what my social status is. I know that I want to be with someone who is honest and faithful, and who doesn't play games or manipulate me. I know that I want to be with someone whose family treats me with kindness and respect, and who doesn't make me feel like I'm not good enough. And I know that I will never again compromise my values or my self-respect to prove my love to someone, because real love shouldn't require you to diminish yourself. I've been thinking about other people who might be in similar situations, who might be in relationships with wealthy partners who are pressuring them to sign unfair prenups, and I want to tell them to stand up for themselves and to not sign anything that makes them feel uncomfortable or undervalued. I want to tell them that if their partner truly loves them and values them, they will be willing to negotiate a fair prenup that protects both parties, not just one party. I want to tell them to pay attention to how their partner's family treats them, because that can be a sign of how their partner really sees them. And I want to tell them that if they discover that their partner is cheating on them, they should leave immediately, because cheating shows a fundamental lack of respect and love, and no relationship can survive that. Thank you for reading my story. And if you've been through something similar, if your partner pressured you to sign an unfair prenup, if you discovered your partner was cheating on you, if you were in a relationship with a significant wealth difference that created problems, or if you had to call off a wedding because of betrayal, I would love to hear how you dealt with it and where you are now. I'm still healing, still processing the betrayal and the manipulation, still rebuilding my life and my sense of self-worth, but I'm grateful that I discovered the truth before I married Victoria, because I know that I dodged a bullet, and that I deserve so much better than what Victoria was offering me.